Ah, beans, boys. This place is looking pretty spooktacular right now. I sure do hope I don't get killed by some random bullshit I couldn't have possibly seen coming. Yeah, I started this video with a 5-year-old meme, what about it? No one's watching this shit, I can do what I want. And what I want is to talk about Little Nightmares 2, the sequel or possibly prequel to Little Nightmares, but who knows, these games are trippier than my crippled granddad when he's like... Now, the original Little Nightmares, which for the record I'm going to be referencing a lot in this video, so if you haven't played it, go do so now, it's okay, I'll wait for you. How sick was that? Is actually one of my favourite horror games of all time. I mean, I liked it a lot when it came out and even put it in my top 10 games of the year list that year, but in the time since, I've really learnt to love it. It was a short, simple, and gloriously creepy game that absolutely mastered the art of sinister imagery, subtle storytelling, and fucked up body positivity. Love yourself, everybody. And I actually replayed the first one after I was done with the second one to remind me why I like it so much, and to remind me why I'm unfortunately not as fond of Little Nightmares 2, and oh god, that just pissed off the boy. Wait, what? He's fucking cheating! I mean, don't get me wrong, this is still a decent game, and it's definitely kept enough of the last game's great atmosphere and visuals, it's just that in my opinion, it's lacking in some of the other important elements that made the first one great. In fact, I'd say there are 3 main things that stop Little Nightmares 2 from making me as moist as the first one did. 1, it's not as original, 2, it's not as polished, and 3, it's not as scary. In fact, to be honest, the only thing in the whole game that really spooked me is the long neck lady who can apparently fucking teleport. She's cheating too! But hey, I try to be positive in these reviews, so let's start with the stuff I enjoyed. For one, the game still looks absolutely spectacular. Just like in the first game, this one is filled to the brim with striking and imposing scenes that make for some genuinely incredible screenshots that would totally work on the cover of Serial Killers Monthly. Yes, it's a real magazine, don't ask how I know about it. The lighting, the backgrounds, the camera positions, it's all presented so fucking well, and I'd say it even feels like you're playing through a living painting at times. I know visuals aren't everything, but in a game like this, where atmosphere plays such a huge role, I think a fascinating world presented in a unique way can really carry you through the whole experience. And the actual gameplay is still a mix of stealth, puzzle platforming, and now a dash of combat that's slow, tedious, and sucks, but this is a horror game, so it's good that it sucks, because if it didn't suck, it would take away all the tension, and that would suck, so... yeah, it sucks, great job. And it all still works quite well. In fact, there were more than a few puzzles and challenges that made for great moments, like the chessboard and the TV stuff, and the one where you turn off a guy's life support and he goes into cardiac arrest. Are we sure we're the good guys here? And on the whole, I'd say the game definitely managed to recapture enough of the original game's charm and style to heebie at least a few of my jeebies, but let's revisit my 3 main problems. Now, when I said this game wasn't as original as the first one, you may have gone, what the fuck do you mean it's not as original? It's a fucking sequel. A sequel can't be as original as the original. That's why it's called a fucking original, you scratchy disc. But here's what I meant. See, the first Little Nightmares took place on a massive ship, which was a pretty interesting setting for a horror game and allowed it to experiment with some different kinds of locations you don't usually find in horror, and they pulled it all off really well. Whereas Little Nightmares 2 uses unfortunately pretty generic locations we've seen thousands of times in horror, like a spooky forest, a spooky school, a spooky hospital. Oh wow, I'm so far on the edge of my seat right now that I might just fall off the darn thing. I actually did. I mean, don't get me wrong, the areas still look amazing, I just don't think they're as imaginative as before. I also said this game isn't as polished, and to be fair, the first one was an immensely polished experience, with incredibly tight design and very few bugs, if any. So I get that it was a high bar to meet, but I'm sorry, I just think this one has way more gameplay problems and visual bugs. Like, the enemy sightlines seem more inconsistent, as does their hearing. So you're just good with that one then? There are too many death traps that you have no way of seeing coming, and as I've shown you already, the game has its fair share of bugs, my personal favourite being the teacher getting stuck on the desk and just... And unfortunately, it was these last few things that kind of feed into my final problem. I really don't think Little Nightmares 2 is that scary. I mean, yes, it is harder to be afraid of a game when you know that at any time it could just... But it's more than that for me. Maybe it's because I didn't think the designs of the bosses were as creepy this time, maybe having a tag-along made me feel less alone, or maybe it was the knowledge that I could just do what my tag-along did a lot of the time and get by. I don't know, fear is subjective and all, it's just for me there weren't really many things that scared me, except for this one kid here. Just vibing. That sound you are currently hearing is the sound of me pissing myself with terror, thank you so much. So yeah, that's just what I think. Again, I know I've been pretty harsh on this game, but for what it's worth, I really don't think it's a bad game, it's just not as good as it could have been. Really though, there is plenty to like about Little Nightmares 2. The visuals are absolutely stellar, the puzzles are interesting, I adored the entire TV section where everyone's obsessed with the Vicar of Dibley, oh what a show. And without wishing to spoil, the game's finale is absolutely fantastic. Again, it doesn't quite reach the mindfuckery of the first game's big twist, but it's still a very worthy sign-off. Honestly, at the game's core, it's still got enough of what made the first one great to keep you going till the end, it's just personally, I feel like it just didn't have as much heart. Like, the look and the feel is still here, and honestly, that might be enough for most on its own. I mean, would you look at this shit? That's not just art, that's art. But the whole thing just feels more flawed to me. More of the sizzle, not enough of the steak, if you know what I mean. But hey, that makes the recommendation easy. If you've played Little Nightmares 1 and want more, then this should scratch most of your itches, and if not, well, it doesn't matter if not, because you played the first one when I told you to earlier, right? I mean, you wouldn't lie to me, 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 you wouldn't